My name is Alex, and I never believed in ghosts until I experienced something so terrifying that it still haunts me to this day. It all began when I decided to take a weekend trip to a small town nestled in the mountains. Being on a tight budget, I opted to stay at a hostel, figuring it would be a fun and adventurous experience. Upon arriving, I was greeted by the friendly hostel staff and shown to my room, room 304. It was a cozy little space with 2 bunk beds and a small window that overlooked the forest below. The atmosphere was welcoming and I quickly settled in, eager to explore the town. That evening, after a day of hiking and sightseeing, I returned to the hostel, exhausted but content. As I climbed into bed and started to drift off to sleep, I heard a faint scratching sound coming from the corner of the room. At first, I dismissed it as the wind or perhaps a stray animal outside. But the scratching persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. I tried to ignore it, burying my head under the covers and telling myself it was just my imagination. Yet no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over me like a heavy blanket. As the night wore on, the scratching evolved into something far more sinister. It sounded like someone, or something, was dragging their nails along the walls, moving closer and closer to my bed with each passing minute. My heart pounded in my chest as I lay there frozen in fear, too terrified to even move. Then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the scratching suddenly stopped. The room fell eerily silent, the only sound being the rapid thump of my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. I lay there for what felt like an eternity, too afraid to move or even breathe. Eventually, exhaustion overtook my fear, and I drifted off into an uneasy sleep. But my respite was short-lived, as I was soon jolted awake by the sensation of icy fingers closing around my throat. I gasped for air, thrashing and struggling against the invisible force that held me captive. In a blind panic, I scrambled out of bed and fled from the room, my heart racing and adrenaline coursing through my veins. I stumbled down the hallway, my mind consumed by terror, until I finally reached the safety of the hostel lobby. The staff looked at me with concern as I frantically recounted what had happened, but their expressions quickly turned to disbelief. They assured me that no one else was staying in room 304 and that there was no record of any disturbances in the hostel's history. But I knew what I had experienced was real. I could still feel the icy grip of those phantom hands around my throat, still hear the haunting echo of that sinister scratching in the dead of night. And as I sit here now, recounting my tale to you, I can't help but wonder if room 304 is still haunted by whatever malevolent force lurks within its walls, waiting to claim its next victim. I remember it vividly, the night that changed everything. It was during my backpacking trip through Europe, a journey of exploration and adventure that quickly turned into a nightmare I couldn't escape. It was in a quaint little town tucked away in the Austrian Alps where I stumbled upon the hostel. The building itself had an eerie charm, with its aged stone walls and creaky wooden floors. Despite its slightly unsettling appearance, I brushed off any reservations and checked into my room, eager for a good night's rest. The first few nights passed without incident, but on the third night things took a sinister turn. I awoke to the sound of faint whispers echoing through the empty corridors. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me, but as the whispers grew louder, I couldn't ignore them any longer. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding in my chest as the whispers seemed to converge outside my door. It was then that I saw it, a shadow, dark and amorphous, slithering along the walls like a living entity. I watched in horror as it moved closer, its shape shifting and contorting in unnatural ways. Paralyzed with fear, I couldn't bring myself to move as the shadow crept closer and closer until it was mere inches away from me. I could feel its icy breath on my skin as it whispered incomprehensible words into my ear, sending shivers down my spine. Desperate to escape, I leaped out of bed and bolted for the door, my heart racing as adrenaline coursed through my veins. But as I reached for the doorknob, the shadow enveloped me in its darkness, suffocating me in its cold embrace. I screamed for help, but my cries fell on deaf ears as the shadow consumed me whole, leaving me trapped in a nightmarish void of darkness and despair. Time seemed to stand still as I struggled to break free from its grasp, but no matter how hard I fought, the shadow held me captive. its malevolent presence growing stronger with each passing moment. I lost all sense of time and space as I was consumed by the darkness, my mind slipping further into madness with each passing day. I tried to hold on to the hope that I would eventually escape, but deep down, I knew that I was doomed to spend eternity trapped in the clutches of the shadow. To this day, I still hear its whispers echoing in the depths of my mind, a constant reminder of the night that changed my life forever. So if you ever find yourself wandering through the Austrian Alps and stumble upon a quaint little hostel tucked away in the mountains, beware the shadows that lurk within its walls, for they hunger for souls to claim as their own. I've always been fascinated by the supernatural, ghost stories, haunted houses, you name it. But nothing could prepare me for the horror I experienced during my stay at the old hostel on the outskirts of town. It was a rundown place with creaky floorboards and flickering lights that gave off an eerie vibe. I checked into room 13, unaware of its sinister history. The receptionist gave me a nervous glance when she handed me the key, but I brushed it off as superstition. Little did I know, I was about to embark on a nightmarish journey. The first night started like any other. I settled into bed, scrolling through my phone as the world outside grew quiet. But then I heard it. A faint whisper coming from the walls. At first I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But as the night wore on, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. I tried to ignore them, pulling the covers over my head and squeezing my eyes shut. But no matter what I did, the whispers persisted. They seemed to be coming from all around me, as if the very walls of the room were alive with malevolent energy. As the hours dragged on, the whispers turned into voices, agonized cries and desperate pleas for help. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized I wasn't alone in that room. Something or someone was lurking in the shadows, reaching out to me from beyond the grave. Terrified, I reached for the bedside lamp, but my hand froze in midair as the room plunged into darkness. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, until they were echoing inside my head, driving me to the brink of madness. In a blind panic, I fumbled for the door, desperate to escape the suffocating grip of whatever haunted that cursed room. But as I reached for the handle, I felt a cold hand close around my wrist, pulling me back into the darkness. I screamed, thrashing against the unseen force that held me captive. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the whispers stopped. The room fell silent, save for the pounding of my own heart as I struggled to catch my breath. I don't know how long I lay there, paralyzed with fear. But eventually the first light of dawn began to filter through the curtains. With trembling hands, I flung open the door and stumbled out into the hallway, my heart still racing with adrenaline. I never went back to that hostel, and I never spoke of what happened in room 13. But even now, years later, the memory of those whispers still haunts my dreams, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of our reality.